You know, in the world of business intelligence, something big is happening. We're finally moving past those dusty, static reports and into a future of dynamic, AI-powered insights that can actually tell you what's coming next. So let's dive into what's really driving this change.
So let me ask you, does this sound familiar? You're sitting on a mountain of data, more than you've ever had before, right? But when it comes time to get a clear answer, a real insight, it feels like you're starving. You've got all the raw material, but none of the finished product.
And this is the classic sign, right? It's that meeting where the sales team and the finance team both show up and they're arguing over a number that should be the same. At that point, you don't really have a data problem. You've got a trust problem. And that's the alarm bell telling you your current BI system is failing.
All right, so before we can talk about the fix, we really need to understand what's broken. Let's get right into the core issue, this BI bottleneck that's just holding so many companies back. And it usually starts with something called dashboard sprawl. Think of it like this. It's a total digital mess. Every team's got its own reports, its own set of KPIs, its own version of the truth. Honestly, it's just overwhelming. It creates more confusion than it does clarity.
This next phrase is just a perfect way to think about the problem. A lot of traditional BI is stuck in what you might call rear-view analytics. Yeah, it's great at telling you what happened last month or last quarter, but think about it. You can't drive a car forward by staring only into the rearview mirror, right? And you definitely can't run a business that way.
Okay, so enough doom and gloom about the problem. Let's talk about the solution. Now, modernizing your BI, it's not some magic bullet. It's all about building a totally new, really solid foundation. And here are the first few steps to get you there.
So these first three things really work together. They're like the three legs of a stool. First, you gotta consolidate your data and your reports to create that single source of truth we talked about. Then, it's about moving over to a modern cloud setup so you get the speed and scale you need. And finally, you have to bake in data quality so everyone knows they can actually trust the numbers.
Okay, so let's dig into that first step. The whole point is to finally create that single source of truth. And that means sitting down and getting everyone to agree on what your KPIs, your key performance indicators, even are. And then you build from a central data model so that when someone pulls up quarterly sales, it's the same number for everyone. No arguments.
All right, step two. This is all about horsepower. Those old on-premise systems, the servers humming away in a closet somewhere, they just can't keep up anymore. Moving to the cloud gives you the raw speed and the scale to analyze data in real time, not weeks after the fact.
And that brings us to the last piece of the foundation, trust. It's super simple. If your people don't trust the data, they're not going to use the tools, period. So by actually putting things like data quality scores right there on the dashboard, you're building that confidence. You're showing them, hey, you can rely on this. Okay, so now our foundation is solid. This is where it gets really cool, because we can start building something amazing on top of it. Let's talk about making that leap from just looking at the past to actually predicting the future. This is where the whole game just completely changes. We're shifting from descriptive analytics to predictive analytics. So the question stops being, hey, why did our sales dip last month? And it becomes, what will our sales probably be next month, and what's going to drive that? So how is this even possible, right? It's through tools like AutoML. That's automated machine learning. And the key thing here is you don't need a whole team of PhD data scientists for every little question. It's about baking these predictive models right into the BI tools your team is already using. It turns every dashboard into a potential crystal ball. But wait, it gets even better, because once you can predict, you can start to plan. Modern BI lets you run all these what-if scenarios, like what happens to our supply chain if a big shipment gets delayed by 2 weeks? Or how would a 10% price drop actually affect demand? This is the difference between being reactive and being proactive. All right, this brings us to what is, for me, the most exciting part of all this. What happens when your BI tool stops being just a tool and starts acting more like a partner, like an assistant that actually helps you make decisions? I love this quote from the source material because it just nails it. The goal is to transform BI from a passive reporting tool into an active decision-making engine. It shouldn't just be this passive library you have to dig through. It should be actively pushing insights to you, helping you figure out your next move. And that, of course, is where generative AI comes into play. Seriously, just imagine asking your BI system a question just like you talk to a coworker.
Something like, hey, what were our best-selling products in the Northeast last quarter, and how does that stack up against the year before? And boom, you get an answer, complete with charts instantly. That's conversational BI. It's an absolute game changer. Okay, so we've built this amazing, predictive, AI-powered system. Awesome. But how do we make sure it's not just a fancy, expensive toy? Well, these last few imperatives are all about connecting the tech to real-world results.
The absolute key here is to close that loop. You have to measure the ROI. So that means you need a formal KPI playbook so everyone's on the same page, speaking the same language. It also means you've got to track if people are actually using these new tools, because a dashboard nobody looks at has zero value. And maybe most important of all, you have to tie these BI projects directly to business outcomes. Can you actually answer the question? Did this help us cut costs? Did it grow our revenue? You need to know. And that really leads to this final, really powerful idea. The goal of all this isn't just to put numbers on a screen. A great KPI shouldn't just inform you, it should inspire you. It should make your team want to take action, to get better, to innovate. So I'll leave you with this one last question to chew on. For your own organization, take a really honest look at your current dashboards and reports. Are they just passive documents, things that get emailed out and then filed away? Or are they living, breathing tools that are actually driving decisions, sparking your ideas, and creating real value? How you answer that question? Well, that'll tell you everything you need to know about where you are on this journey to modernizing your BI.